Hey guys, Mynock here with Mynock's Den, coming to you with a short video explaining how I achieved the textured paint jobs on some of my helmets. A look that was inspired by this authentic World War II US M1 helmet I own. I know there's probably other ways to achieve this kind of look, but this is how I do it, so let's take a look. Step 1. To promote good paint adhesion, I always wipe the resin surface down with acetone to remove any remaining mold release agent left over from the casting process. Step 2. I begin to lay down Rust-Oleum Stone texture spray paint in light passes, rotating the helmet until everything is covered. I don't use primer because I don't actually want the paint to bond to the surface too well. I know this sounds a little counterintuitive, but it helps with the volumetric weathering and battle damage effects that I explained in Step 7. At this point, you may also choose to give the helmet a few very light dustings with Krylon natural stone textured finish paint, which has much finer flakes than the Rust-Oleum version. I've omitted this step on some of my helmets, so this one's optional. Step 3. After leaving the helmet to dry for an hour under a fan, I pick a spray paint of the same brand. I often use Rust-Oleum and Krylon interchangeably. That's as close to the final main paint job color I want to achieve as possible. I spray the helmet in thin passes until the white specks from the stone texture are no longer visible. This builds up or thickens the bumps of the stone texture underneath. I then leave the helmet to dry under a fan until the textured paint bumps are hard enough to sand, usually about 2 to 3 days depending on ambient conditions. Step 4. I dry sand the paint down as flat as I can using a sanding sponge or sandpaper 320 to 400 grit, being careful not to expose the resin underneath. I then use a toothbrush to loosen all the sanding dust that gets trapped within the texture and blow it off with an air compressor. Step 5. I then repeat steps 2, 3, and 4 until I have the final texture I'm happy with. The thing to keep in mind here is that using less spray paint over the stone texture will produce a corked look that is more faithful to the World War II helmet that inspired this technique, while more spray paint will result in the more rounded granules of texture, like in this example. Gloss spray paint will thicken the granules more than matte paint, so keep this in mind when choosing your paints. Step 6. Once the texture is complete and the helmet has dried to the touch, I airbrush the helmet with Tamiya acrylics to get the colors that I want, and seal it all up with a matte clear coat. Step 7. Once I let this dry for a day, I go on to add volumetric battle scuffing to the helmet by scraping off the textured paint right down to the resin surface. I want to expose but not actually damage the resin surface underneath, so I use a file down popsicle stick, toothpicks, or a plastic scraper for this. Keep in mind that scraping off paint will be a little more difficult during this step if the helmet was primed first in Step 2. It's worth saying that even without priming the helmet first, after a few weeks the spray paint will harden sufficiently and will not easily come off. Step 8. I usually infuse the outer surface of most fully finished helmets I make with aluminum powder in a process called cold casting, which makes the surface look convincingly like metal when polished. Scraping the paint off therefore reveals a realistic metallic surface that usually doesn't need any touching up. When working with non-cold cast resin surfaces, however, you can hand paint the areas inside the scrapes you made in Step 7 with dark gray or metallic colors. I use Tamiya brand acrylics for their excellent consistency and flow. If done carefully, the paint will fill the scrapes to the raised edges of the surrounding spray paint coat, creating realistic flat gray or metallic damage on the otherwise textured surface. You can follow this up with some rust or reddish-brown washes in those areas if you prefer a more toned-down or aged metal look. Step 9. I then weather the rest of the paint job with Tamiya powders, antiquing rust solution, and various acrylic washes before sealing it up with Tamiya flat clear coat. Once the flat clear coat has dried to the touch, you can get interesting weathering effects by simply rubbing the paint job with your fingers, which simulates minor wear. You can then reseal this again with more flat clear and leave to cure for a few days before handling. And that's it! I hope that some of you found this video helpful, and I wish you all the best in your own creative pursuits, whatever they may be. Thanks again for watching, everyone. Mynock out.